Hi everyone, welcome back to Tech and Talk, and this is gonna be our eighth episode in store management. So our last video we covered the generic repository pattern for our data layer. So in this video we are going to apply same approach for our business services layer, which means uh, for our services we will be implementing a generic service just to make sure that we don't spend time on writing CRUD operation for every single entity. Okay, so let's get started and let's see what was there in our iProduct service. And before that, let me show you the current interface of our store. So this is our store management application, and we can see our products here, and we have our stores here. So, and this is coming currently this is coming from our generic repository, this product part. And now today we will be doing the generic service, and we will be testing after that. Okay, so this was our iProduct service, and what I said earlier, that should be part of our generic service, not the iProduct service, just to make sure that for every single entity we don't need to write those CRUD operations every time. This will reduce our project development time, as well as the code duplication. Code duplication will be handled as well. All right, so first of all, let me create a generic interface here in sm.business.interfaces project. So that would be iGeneric service, and that would be an interface, and we will be creating that interface for let's say T model, and let's make that interface generic and use that in model everywhere in this interface. Let's exclude that that search bar from here, just to make sure we are covering the CRUD operation in this episode. The model, again the model, and that will be delete by IT. Okay, and let's go to the next. Yeah, so I think we can remove that one from here, just to make sure we are cleaning the code as part of refactoring activity. Okay, and here in the data services we need to add generic, not just generic service, and that class will have T model, T entity, and it will extend or implement iGeneric service T model display. All right, and we need to implement that interface as well, something like this. All right, and here we need to tell that where the entity is our base entity. Something like that. We can remove extra lines, and let's implement those generic methods step by step. And next, what we can do is we will need, first of all, the generic repository here, so we can include that part here. I private read only I repository, and that repository will be the entity type like this. And in those angle brackets, first type is our model, the business model, and the second type is our entity, which is the representation of database table. Why this one required? Because we have to pass this one to the I repository interface just to just to access particular table from our service. That's why we need both the generic indicators, one for our model and one for our entity. And the base entity we mentioned here because we know that the id, this base entity includes the id, so we want to delete an entity by its id, right? And there are other use cases as well, right? So that's why we have to mention that t entity is a type of base entity. uh, if we haven't used the base entity, we can mention that as a class, but in our case we have to mention that it's a base entity. Okay, that was first interface we want to inject. Second one would be, okay, let's come to the second one later. First of all, let's because now in this step we will be having, or we will be receiving our T models, which are our business models. Let's say if we want to add a record into database, we need to convert that business model into our entity. One way is to do that manually, right? To map every property of business model to every property on entity class, but we don't want to write those lines of code. We want some library which is automapper. So let's include automapper in our data service. Automapper, this one. Let's install it, and next what we can do is let's add a separate class inside our business service code, because that mapping will be required only in this project. So what we can do is we can create a new class. Let's name it something like business entity mappings, right? And let's name it, let's mark it as public, and we want to extend it from profile, and profile is a class from automapper. You can see that. Next we need to create map like this. I think that would be, let's see what are the possible options inside profile. Okay. What are the possible options? Create map, create map. I think that is create map. Create map, and that map will include both the product model or models and our entities like this. Model, and why can't we find create map? No suggestions. Okay. Let's try to find what are the suggestions we have for automapper. Okay, my bad, my bad. So we need to initialize, or we need to list that mapping inside the constructor, and of course we can't do that directly in the class, and sometime that happens, right? So Control C, and we want to list those mapping. So this is how we mapped our product model to product, and instead of writing an extra line, we just need to create or call a reverse map method, which means every time we need to convert from model to product or product to model, we can do that just by calling that reverse map method. Okay, we done that, and now we need to include private read only imapper, and that would be mapper, and we need to initialize both of those properties in the generic service constructor, this, and we will be calling I for the entity was tree, and next would be imapper mapper, and underscore mapper would be mapper. Okay, so next line will be to add that. First of all, we need to convert that model into T entity, which we can do by just calling underscore mapper dot map this way. So this means that our model will be converted to T entity and available in that variable. And next, we will be doing underscore repository dot save, I guess. Yeah, and here we need to pass over entity, and that's it for this add thing. And yeah, ideally we should have that get all at the top. Let's move that one to the top this way. Okay, next thing is all entities equals to underscore repositories dot get all models is equal to underscore map, and we need this one to be convert this one to list of team models this way, because this will be giving us the list of entities, and we need to convert this one to list of team models, and we just can return team models. So get all done, add done. Next would be the update method this way, this way, this way, this way. Okay, so update would be, first of all we need to find, or I don't think so we need to find that entity, we just need to convert directly this model to entity, and let me tell you why. But first of all, let's directly convert this one to the imapper dot map this way, and let's name into entity, because we already have updated version of our entity here in the form of model. So we need to convert into entity, and we can just simply pass that one to our repositories save method this way. And let me quickly show you why, because in this save implementation we have handled that if the entity already has ID, which means entity is there, we just need to update it. It will attach that entity to dpset and will change its state to modified, and then save changes will be called, right? And it should work. Yeah, just for refactoring perspective, we have seen that these lines are getting duplicate, so what we can do, just move that line at the end of if else, instead of doing calling two lines, we can just do that with a single line. And if we see here in the delete method, yeah, I have found another one thing, because here if entity already exists, we are marking that one as delete, but we are not doing anything, right? Which means that should go here as well, out of that else. Right now it should be working as expected. Okay, let's go back to our generic service here, and here now let's Let's find the entity is equal to post.get. Get will return as queryable, and we can do directly query inside this one. We can use id. Now why we can use this id? Just because of this base entity, right? If that is not there, we can't access any of those properties from those entities. So is equal to id dot first or default, and we need to check if entity not null, then do that step, which is repository dot delete. And now by looking into that code, it seems that we can optimize this code in a way that there should be only one call to the repository, right? Currently we are getting in the first call and we are deleting in a second call, which is not, I think, ideal. Yeah, but let's refactor that thing later. Yeah, so now generic repository is there, it's implemented, but how we can call that one from the controller? We can't do that directly. So for that one, we need to create an interface, which we already did previously. From previously, I mean that product service interface, right? So what we can do, we can remove all the contents from here, and we need to extend it from a generic service, and we need to pass that the model, not the model. In this case, we will be doing that product model this way, right? And yeah, I think that's right. And next thing is we need to implement that one into our product service. Our product service is already there, which means we can remove all those CRUD operations from here. We can keep search for now because search is something else, and the product model and product this way, and we can do that product service, and we need to pass the db. It should not be the db context, it should be repository underscore repository, and this should be repository underscore repository. Okay, and another thing, we need to pass this to the my product service, not this way, this way, and we need to use imapper mapper, and we will be calling that one from. Don't think so we need mapper here. we can pass to base class repository and mapper. Okay, all right, I think issues are resolved and we are good to go. I think my laptop charging is going down. Okay, that's fine now. All right, now what we can do is we can just revisit our controller because we just change our service layer and it should not affect our controller layer, right? So let's double check how the product service is looking like now. Okay, so product service, yes. So because search operation is there explicitly, what we can do is we need to uh, put that extra method because that doesn't include in CRUD, line or CRUD list. We can pass that one here as a public method, and now the controller should be fine, right? So we don't need to change anything in this layer, right? And that is the beauty of, if we follow an architecture, we just need to change a particular layer or particular class, and those classes are such loosely coupled that change doesn't affect to other components. Okay, let's rebuild it and let's test our application now, how those CRUD operations are working. Okay, let me press Ctrl F5 and double check. Web server is no longer running. Okay, let's run it and see. Yeah, we have added the service layer, but we haven't mentioned or service layer and automapper as well, right? We need to configure those in app.di, right? iProduct is fine. We just need to configure automapper configurations, not configuration, just need configuration, right? So for that one, India, you need to call a single line. Okay, what we can do is services dot, I think that would be add auto mapper, and that should be coming from auto mapper dependency injection package. And what was the name of our profile class here where we put our mappings? Business entity mappings. Entity mappings, it's coming. Okay, and next thing is in our infrastructure where we have that configurations, we need to add automapper di. Automapper dependency injection, we need to implement that one. Okay, Now that should be resolved automatically. Awesome. Let's relaunch the application. Okay, now it's launched, and if we go to products, you can see products are getting from that generic service. Very fine. And let's try to add product 121133 and some description. Okay, it's working fine. Let's double check the edit one. Updated description. Okay, now updated description is coming fine as well. Let's add another one, which is product 3. Description is 333. And now double check the search product. This way it's working fine. Let's double check the delete operation. It's working fine as well, right? So that is how we can implement the generic service layer, and actually it's working. We can double check by putting the debugger points. Let's say if we put in the generic service, we put a debugger here and debug the application. And if I go to the products, so our debugger point will hit. So currently it's mentioned the model, and if we now see the list of entities, you can see there is a one count which is data.models.product, right? So let's do the same thing for our other entity, which was previously over, I think, the group entity. Let's double check it. No, it's a store model entity. Okay, and in the data layer, here, repositories, and in here the sm.data models, we haven't included that store model in our entities list. I think that's fine. We can do that now. So first of all, we can simply copy and add another class here. Let's name it store. Public store. This way base entity will come here, and what was there in the base entity? We previously had the ID, but there should be other common things as well, like public date time created on set, and public date time updated on, and public bool is deleted, and before it's deleted there should be public bool is active, and by default its value should be true. All right, I think that's pretty much it. That is one change. Not this way, it should be get set is equal to true. All right, let's go back to the store entity, and again, next thing is in our not here in our store management db context, we should have our public db set store, and here we will have stores get set. The idea is a user can have multiple stores, and each of his store can have multiple products. Okay, and next thing is we will need a repository class for store, so we can just copy our product repository, just paste it and just rename it. That would be our store repository. And this is our store repository, store, and I store repository. And in our data.interfaces, we can just copy this one to use that one for our store repository here. Store repository, and this is our store repository this way. Let's jump back to the store repository, and we need to rename it to the store repository, and I think that is fine now. Let's jump back to the data services layer, and we now need one interface which will be the copy of this one. So let's copy it and paste it here, and we just can rename it iStore service, and you can say it's iStore service store model, and don't want this extra search functionality for now. Let's stick with the CRUD operations, and for the product service we need to copy paste it for store service. That would be our store service generic store model. That would be our store, and that would be our store service. And here we will have our store repository, and we'll have our store service, store repository, and we don't need that extra functionality, right? And even we don't need that extra line here, because we can just simply pass that reference from constructor to the base class. Okay, now it's time to change the presentation layer to have that store service instead of that inline list. Okay, private read only. I store service, and that would be our store service underscore store service. Public store controller this way, and we will have our underscore store service dot get all for models equal to this, and can do models here, right? And because we haven't further explore or implemented that store part, but we can do just for testing purpose, let's explicitly create a store model, new store model id is equal to, don't need to give that id, we can just pass name store one, right, like this, and just pass it. Let's go store service dot add store model. Okay, and let's rebuild this solution. And after that, one thing we forgot to include is in our business entity mappings, we need to have model map for our store model against our store, and we can use a reverse map as well, right? And next thing would be we need to add a migration to commit our database changes. Add dash migration, and that would be, let's say, the couple of changes we have did. So what we can do, let's start with version. So v1, and we forgot to mention the startup project, and I think there will be an error. No, that's good. Okay, so these changes are, we have added some of the columns in the existing products table, and we have added a new store table into the database, and now we can use update database. At this point we will need the starter project, I think. No, which is also great. Okay, now our changes are committed to the database. What we can do is just relaunch the application to see the changes, just to make sure everything is working fine and as expected. Okay, products working fine, stores. Okay, now in stores, yeah, we forgot to add the di for our store service. So let's go back to the infrastructure. So we have one for product service, but we missed for a store service. So let's use I store service and the store service. Right, and let's rebuild. Control F5. Okay, let's go to stores. Now you can see stores are getting populated into the database. We can double check that from Navicat Premium. So I'm using Navicat Premium to access my databases. We have one here for Windows authentication. Yeah, that is SM system. Okay, we have one SM system table. But I think I use different name in my, no, I have used SM system. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you can see there are 10 entries added, and if I refresh there will be 11th entity, and you can see now 11th record is can be visible now here, and you can see the other columns are also visible in the database, and is active is by default 1 true, because we initialize that property with true in the entity class. So that was all for this episode. We first of all we converted our service, specific service, to generic service to cover the CRUD operations, and then we added the store model, and we added store entity in through our database, and the last thing we did is we added automapper layer just to convert our business model to entity when we want to update or add entity in the database, and from entity to the business model when we want to read or fetch records from the database, just to make sure we are not exposing or sharing our database entities to the presentation layer, and this is very important. So that was all for this episode. I think we have covered the main parts from the setup perspective or the architecture's perspective of onion architecture. Next episode will be to cover the features. So we have store setup, but the other three operations in controller layer are missing. So in next episode we will try to cover add, edit or delete store, and we'll try to cover the adding products inside a particular store, and after that we will be doing the conversion of that onion architecture into clean architecture. Right, so that was all. Keep watching. In case of any confusion or query, do ask in the comment section. I will try to reply as soon as possible, and keep coding. Don't forget to subscribe my channel, and I will try to produce more technical and programming videos in the future. Thanks everyone. Bye.